Hi, everyone. Welcome to the first episode of the Triumph Strength and Performance podcast. On today's episode, Devan, Chris, and Andy will be talking about replacing competition barbell work with accessories, favorite demographics to work with, different communication styles, and more. If you like this, subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on Spotify, and check out our content on Instagram at Triumph S&P. Thanks for listening and enjoy.
That's good. I like it.
Oh
Yeah,
god.
we can crop it out.
Hopefully. You know, at audio apparently, Andy. So
And he's a big editor. He's a
Andy's
big
the editor.
editing guy.
I'm just him like that.
You should hear how he talks about it. It's like easy to him.
All right, so you want to start with
It is.
using accessories to replace comp work? I have a good one.
Yeah.
Hold on, I'm gonna whip up the spreadsheet. But this person, this is like an oddly specific one for like the fact that you wrote this, Andy, because so this person's in pain. I also haven't been working with him for a long period of time, but he was squatting twice a week, deadlifting twice a week, and it's just like his low back, he just can't do it. It was like literally the first week we started, things got he was already dealing with just like a QL strain or whatever from before we started, and then like literally after week 1 of squatting and deadlifting consecutively, it just got re-aggravated. Very unfortunate convenience, but with him, what I did was I just got rid of like an entire squat day and just put leg press in there, push the leg press hard because he can do it without pain. But that's like the one big one that I've found in terms of just replacing comp work entirely with accessories, is just like if someone just can't manage the comp work from pain. And then literally after like a week or two, I think it was just 1 week of taking out the squat day and doing leg press instead, maybe 2 weeks. He was able to load his primer just fine. And that was like the easiest improvement ever. And I think I've done that too, in terms of not even just stripping an entire day, but like someone will do like literally 1 set of the comp lift and then do the replacement accessory for back downs or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I've had a couple cases like exact same thing. Like I think of my client who competed at Odyssey. He was running into knee pain in prep, and we had to strip so much of his like squat work because of that, and just cycling through variations like SSB, high bar, like nothing was giving him pain-free volume essentially. But we found that pendulum squats specifically, and he had access to one at his gym, was pain-free, and we were able to get most of his squat volume from that on his secondary day, and it primed him enough for the primary day to actually like show up strong. So he's essentially squatting like 1.5 times a week. Like the secondary day wasn't enough comp work. It was maybe, I think it was 1 set of low bar or like 2 sets of ascending, like super, probably sub 60% of his 1RM, so super light. But the pendulum squats were just like pushed hard enough to the point that it would make up for the fact, and it was a close enough movement that it worked. So
Do you guys find that you are mainly switching out comp work for accessories when the lifter is in pain?
As opposed to what? Oh, you mean like
Just
that would be like
I had a lifter who just pushing top end on squat beat her up a ton. And her squat was like pretty hingy and similar to like the pattern on a belt squat. And we just pushed like top triples on belt squat as a more sustainable way to push intensity in that pattern without beating her up so much, and that worked pretty well. But she wasn't in pain. It was just like a just to manage fatigue.
I've used belt squat specifically as like a little like tease to see if like a third squat day would be viable, or just like as a way to kind of keep the pattern like fresh enough to bridge a gap if the exposure is like too long of a timing in between. And it's worked like decently well both times I've like implemented that. So
Yeah, I've
that's
done
like
that.
a case.
But I think when you do it, you got to make sure that people aren't abusing the belt squat, because you can just completely cheat that and push your hips back and act like you're squatting, but not at all be similar to an actual comp squat.
yeah.
For sure.
I don't think I've had any unique case where I've done like a complete swap for an accessory other than pain. But I've definitely done like plenty of like, I don't want to say like primary and secondary days for accessories, but like I push top sets on accessories a lot for people. I guess to like kind of fill gaps, but I don't like replace entirely. Like I probably, like for the belt squat example you gave, Chris, I wouldn't not that I wouldn't, I just haven't, but I have yet to have an experience where someone was getting beat up by like a top end and then you just replace it with belt squat because you can push higher intensity, but they don't get beat up. I've yet to have that, but like, I guess more so just from pushing intensity on an accessory instead of, to fulfill the fact that they need to push intensity on accessory, not a conflict, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't like we swapped out entirely comp squats for belt squat. It was just like we didn't chase like top end intensity on comp squat. We
Oh,
just
okay.
swapped that out for belt squat. Like she was still doing a full day of comp squatting,
Oh,
but
okay.
just didn't have that like super high intensity top set.
Okay.
Most of the time when I'm programming a top set for an accessory, it's just because I want someone to push it harder, and I feel like they're not pushing it hard enough. Like if someone's doing like a 3x10 on dumbbell press and it's at like RPE 8, and they're not pushing it hard enough, I'll throw in like a 1x6 at 8 to 9, and then back down 10s or something like that, just so they feel like it's more like a something that they need to push harder and take it more intent.
Yeah,
I do that super often.
Yeah.
What accessories do you find yourself doing that more often for?
Belt squat, dumbbell press, and sometimes RDL.
Yeah.
Honestly,
or like, I don't know, if someone has just like more reliance on accessory work than the typical person, then just anything that I want them to be like a main accessory, like machine chest press or leg press or whatever.
Yeah. What were you gonna say, Dev?
I was gonna say like literally all of them. No, I mean probably like bicep curls or something, but I would probably agree with Chris like when you said like the main accessory, you know what I mean? Like someone, I don't know, they might have like weighted dips or chest press or dumbbell press or something for bench. I'm probably more likely to push a top set on that as opposed to like a lateral raise. But I think the premise of pushing a top set in general is useful for all accessories. Like right now, I'm doing a top set on bicep curl of 6 to 8 reps. So I think it's viable for a lot of people. It's just like, I think there are some accessories out there that can, people can benefit more from like the higher rep range, and then some that, you can benefit more from the lower rep range, kind of like the ones that Chris said, like belt squat, dips, maybe dumbbell press, hack squat, things like that. The ones that you can just load more. But yeah.
I think the only time I've programmed a top set of bicep curls is I did I think it was a top triple back
The top
supported easy
triple?
bar curl. Yeah,
Wow.
just because he wanted to. I was like, yeah, fine, it's okay.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Devin, you program your accessories like very interestingly.
I do. I'd say I don't know how often, but I do a lot of like repeats with an AMRAP, and like I'm looking at it right now, but like usually like one top set that's like slightly lower reps, top set. You can't really call, I mean, I guess you can call it a top set, but one set of just like lower to moderate reps, and then like usually like 1 to 2 of just like, I don't know, middle to higher reps. Like just this example I have on my screen is just like quad extension, one set of 10 to 12, one set of 12 to 15, and the AMRAP the second set to like a certain RPE. And usually the RPE is like in between 7 and 9. But I like doing that. 2 reasons: because it makes people push them more, and that's the first reason. And the second reason is because they don't just look at the program seeing like a 3x12 and they're like, oh, I just got a 3x12 in quad extension, I can just bang that out really quick. But instead they have to like treat each set with more intentionality, I guess. You know what I mean? And
That's
I
what I
think
was gonna say.
that's a
When you
big
just see like 3 sets of 10, they're I think a lot more likely to just kind of breeze through it. But where
Yeah.
you see, all right, one set AMRAP minus percent, whatever, like however you structure it, they're like, okay, each set kind of has a purpose, and I'm gonna go into each set trying to accomplish that goal.
Yeah,
Everyone that I would give the belt squat thing to, like a top set on belt squat, everyone would like it is the same situation. You put so much more effort towards that and intent towards it, and
exactly.
you get the results just like so much better simply
Exactly.
from that.
And
I have
Frank,
ascending sets on belt squat right now.
yeah, ascending sets too are
Yeah.
perfect the exact same reason. But also if you're doing, I'd say on the vast majority of accessories, if not all accessories, if you're doing, we'll say a 3x10, that third set of 10, if you're really pushing the accessory, that third set of 10, you're probably not going to get 10. Like if the first set or two, you're really pushing to an RP, I don't know, 9, like that, you're not going to get 10 on the third set. You're probably gonna have to drop the weight. So, considering the fact that if because I do program accessories to a pretty high RPE for like in the 8 to 9 range for everything, almost everything, then I would say like you're gonna be failing stuff or not taking it as seriously if you are just doing like a 3 or a 2 or a 4 by whatever, as opposed to accounting for the fact that they're going to be fatigued towards the end, you know.
That's the idea. When you see, like, when you write on paper like 2 sets of 12 to RPE 9, the intent is that a person is like going to RPE 9 on the first set, and then if they think they're 12 reps of whatever weight is not going to be RPE 9 on the second set, like they're supposed to drop weight. So I feel like it's also like a communication thing, where if you tell people that that's the intent behind what you're writing down, is that each set is supposed to be set RPE and you have to adjust weight to do so, like it makes a little bit more sense. But I get it from the perspective that you're saying that from, to just make it easier to do the same thing essentially.
Yeah, are you saying like that's with the assumption that like say a 2x12 has to be with the same weight, you mean?
Well, like if you're assuming that it's with the same weight, that second set's probably not going to be the same RPE as the first one, right? But if like the intent of, I'm assuming like you guys agree, when you write like a 3x12 at RPE 8, it's like that first set, or like do you guys write it with the intent that that last set is RPE 8, or is it like each set is RPE 8? And do you clarify to clients like when you're doing accessories, like this is how I want you to like push them?
On accessories specifically?
Yeah. Or do you just not program like 3x12s anymore?
Honestly, if I'm doing straight sets, like if I'm giving someone like, I don't know, 3x5 on deadlift or something, just a random example, I would want it to be so that the last set is at RPE. But for accessories, I'm not going to be as nitpicky. I'd probably prefer people push all of the sets to the RPE and then lower the weight if necessary. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's why I do ranges all the time with the accessories. Like I'm doing like lat pull downs or bicep curls or whatever. It's usually a range of like 8 to 12 or 10 to 15.
Yep.
And I'm not as concerned if you're like in RPE off, like it's supposed to be 9, and you hit an RPE 8 on the last set or the first set or whatever. But I think the problem is when people are pushing it to like a genuine RPE 3, because that happens all the time. You'll have someone like record their accessories and they're doing lat pull downs and they say it was an RPE 8, but it was like they had like 10 reps in the tank. That's why I have people record. I'll usually just like, I don't know, once a month with like everybody, I'll just say, oh, record a set of leg extensions just so I can see them and also just hold them accountable to make sure that they are thinking about pushing them.
Yep.
Yeah. Anytime I do a sort of like top set or anything like that, it's always like any top set of an accessory, I have them record for that same reason.
Yeah.
Or like a ascending set that like record the last set, whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's something about feeling like you're being watched and that you're being judged for it that's going to make someone try harder.
Being judged. Yeah. I have to record belt squats all the time.
I had a client that she had a belt squat AMRAP, and every single week I was just like, you're not trying hard enough. You're not trying hard enough. Go harder, go harder. And then she eventually did. And then her squat went up.
Yeah. I had someone, I think you guys are familiar with this person, but as of like 2 months ago, maybe 3 months ago, his belt squat just looked disgusting. It was so bad. Just like very supportive on the railing and like super upright. Like he would just like, it was disgusting. And it was like the first time I had him record belt squats in a long time. And then I saw the video and I'm like, yeah. So it's like for all we know, if someone's not even recording accessories often, they could just be done horribly, like swinging bicep curls or whatever. And I think it's like it's a nice reminder for myself and the client that the bodybuilding work is just so important for powerlifting. Like you should be trying to get jacked. And it's like, okay, now your coach wants to see the bodybuilding work from you. That's going to be like, I guess, that reinforcer for the person that, hey, this is important. My coach needs to see it. And then you do nitpick like their technique on an accessory or just tell them, hey, this needs to be pushed harder. And then they kind of realize like, oh yeah, this is like equally as important as everything else.
Are belt squats the thing that you see people like fucking up on the most? Because that's the one that like almost every single new person that I start with, I'm like, I always have them film belt squat, and I'm like 90% of the time I have to like completely rework it because they're just doing it completely wrong.
Belt squat's probably the first one, yeah, because you can cheat it so hard. You can just push your hips back and think that you're doing a squat, but it's just nowhere remotely close to the pattern that you're looking for. Belt squats and like any kind of any kind of hinge is what people usually screw up at first.
I agree.
RDLs.
Yeah.
things like that.
RDLs is a big one for me.
Yeah.
A lot of people suck at RDLs.
A lot of people
Yeah.
suck at RDLs. I'm not good at them.
They're hard.
Yeah.
None
I
of
don't
us know how to
treat-
hinge.
I don't treat RDLs as an accessory. I just treat it as a deadlift, to be honest. Like a secondary deadlift day, kind of.
Yeah, yeah, especially if they're strong.
Do you only do that if it's a barbell RDL, or would you do that with a dumbbell RDL too?
Treat it like a secondary deadlift?
Yeah.
Just barbell, 100%.
I very rarely program dumbbell RDLs as an actual like loaded pushed movement. I think most people are too strong for them.
Brad
Yeah.
has me doing them.
Really? What do you use?
I like right now I have tempo. It's like 3 second tempo, 3x8 after like my 2 or 3 sets of deadlifts on my
Okay.
secondary day.
Yeah.
So I have a 1x2 pause, and then on the first week block, it's a 1x2 back down, and then it builds into a 2x2. But super low weight, and then the tempo RDLs after with dumbbells, and I can hit the RPE. It's like an RPE 6 or 7. I can hit that with like the 90s, 100. Like
Really? You're in a true
yeah.
7?
I don't know about that.
If
You
you're
gotta lift
doing
over
the
600
tempo,
pounds.
if you're doing the tempo, I don't know.
I need to see
It feels like it, but it's also like I don't think it's there for the purpose of like giving you the same stimulus as you would with like a barbell RDL, for example.
Yeah. The only time I'm using dumbbell RDLs is to usually as a warm up. I'll do a toes elevated dumbbell RDL, and they're loaded super light, just for center mass stuff.
It's a little bit easier to like move through the actual like act of hinging though, which I feel like is an advantage of them because like you're not confined to like the actual barbell, so you can kind of just like flow a little bit more easily.
That's why I want to mess around with. Go ahead, Devin.
I was gonna say that too because I had someone so I've been with this person for like 2 blocks, 2.5 maybe, and she was doing. I have her doing 1 set of barbell RDL, like very, very, very light, literally just to get hinging in. It was like I forget what I had it programmed at. It was a percentage, but it was like there was like a couple weeks where she had to like skip it or just not do it because her back was killing her. And I was like, okay, well, what's the purpose of me putting this 1 set of insanely light RDLs in? It's literally just to get hinging practice. And then it was actually the first time she skipped it. She replaced it with dumbbells and it felt fine. I'm like, okay, let's just do it with dumbbells because if it's easy to get that movement pattern in, if it doesn't hurt you, it's you're using the same amount of weight that you would with dumbbells or same amount of weight that you would with the barbell with the dumbbells. Then let's just do dumbbells because it hurts less and you're still hinging.
Yeah. What I was gonna say with Andy, what you were saying, that's kind of why I want to mess around with trap bar deadlifts. I just never programmed them, but I feel like they'd be a good accessory movement for a lot of people. It's just an easier movement to manage center of mass within. But I don't know. I've just never programmed them, so I don't know what the fatigue is like and how to actually get them into a program without screwing other things up. But I definitely want to look into that.
Also, if you're doing like kickstand or like any sort of unilateral hinging, like it has to be dumbbell at that point.
Yeah.
So
I had one person doing kickstand barbell RDLs, but it wasn't prescribed by me. It was a PT who wanted it in the program. But yeah, I've never programmed single leg barbell stuff.
Would you not, with a kickstand barbell, would you not just like swing?
I don't know. He didn't even record them. I knew they were loaded super light. And I was like, yeah, do what you need to do. And then when you're feeling better, we can take them out.
Well, I'm thinking like contralateral when you hold the other dumbbell. As you come in, you're bound to like twist a little bit.
Yeah.
So I feel like if you're holding a barbell, you're just going to go fucking swinging.
Probably. That's probably what happened, yeah.
We want to move on to the next
topic. Yeah.
Favorite demographics.
Favorite demographic to work with. Dude, honestly, I wouldn't say this is my favorite demographic to work with, but what surprised me is I got a few inquiries lately that are really young, like 15, 16 years old, and they've all been fantastic. I expected them to be lazy and annoying, but they're not. They all of them give great feedback, always update their sheet, always upload their videos, always communicate well. I've had zero like negative things happen with the younger clients that I thought was gonna happen.
I think it's an authority thing. I think it's
Maybe.
probably right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't have nearly as many young people as you or anyone that young. I think my youngest is 18, but I have
4 people
yeah, I mean, I haven't had any bad 18-year-olds, you know. I have someone who's 19 and she's fantastic. I have someone who's 18. He's fantastic, like arguably one of my most mature clients. So yeah.
That's the young guys.
I had a 16-year-old, but I wouldn't say that she was like super invested in it. So I guess I don't have like a good like quality pool to actually take anything from. Yeah. But for me personally, I just enjoy working with any athlete who's like just past the point of like novice, essentially. Like they've competed maybe once or twice. They're invested enough in the sport to actually like care and aren't just kind of like coming from, you know, gym bro background, hopping in and being like, oh, I want to do a meet in like 2 months, put like, you know, 200 pounds on my total right this minute. Because those people are always more invested. They always give better feedback because they've been doing it long enough to the point that a lot of times they just know themselves pretty well. But they still have like a lot of room to progress pretty easily because they're not at that advanced level yet. But
talking about favorite demographics, my least favorite demographic is definitely that gym bro. I don't know, just like commercial gym bodybuilding training for 3 years and then found out what powerlifting was. And was like, oh, I'm gonna get a coach and start being a powerlifter. I never liked that process of trying to like transition someone from like, you know, touch and go, bouncing off the chest bench and like quarter squats into powerlifting. It just never goes smooth, and I feel like neither side enjoys that.
I feel like it's like a buy-in thing too, because it's like you almost know based off of how much like they seem to care about it that it's not going to be a long-term thing. Like they're almost in it for like the short-term excitement of like, oh, I'm getting coached, I'm going to do a meet, and then it's like after either that meet happens or just like a couple months after that, it just like all goes downhill half the time.
Yeah. I don't know that I've ever actually gotten someone who was, you know, gym bro bodybuilder style, I don't know, lifter, and then actually gotten them into a powerlifting meet. I don't know who I've done that with, but I feel like that population of someone who kind of trains on their own for a while, does their own thing, just trains totally by feel, doesn't respond well to immediately having not no control, but like having someone tell them to change everything. Because usually it goes poorly at the start. They're not going to get immediately stronger. You have to retrain for a little bit. And then seeing that kind of regression just ruins the buy-in.
Devin, what do you think?
I agree with everything that you guys said. I don't disagree on anything. I would say I don't know if this counts as a demographic, but I like the people who start out with, I guess, I don't know if I'm going to phrase this poorly, but like start out with the wrong mindset. Like I've had a couple people who have started out and they have like these unrealistic expectations, or they're really emotional in the gym or whatever it may be. And then you teach them X, Y, and Z, and they come out as a better lifter. Like some people like get input at like they inquire to you and you're like, okay, this is not a really good inquiry. I'm going to take them on. And we'll see how they improve. And then they end up improving in the areas that exactly you want them to improve upon. That's what I really like. Like I have someone I've been with for like a year now, and their inquiry was, you know, I could tell like they were like an overthinker, very emotional. They clearly cared about their training, but they weren't really sure like the direction that they wanted to go in. And, you know, first 3 months with them, there was a lot of just like neuroticism and bad habits that they got into in the gym. I guess, but kind of like seeing how they've grown over the past year is really, really satisfying. And it's cool seeing them get stronger, obviously. Like that's the goal of coaching, but just like the mental growth as well and the relationship that they have with training is like equally as satisfying. So I guess if I were to like categorize that as a demographic, it's like the people who you can teach easily and are willing to learn and are willing to like expand and grow upon I guess the qualities that they have as a lifter to start versus like where they're going to be after they grow and learn from you. You know what I mean?
Sure. That I think that we don't have this on the topics list, but I think it's a good segue into like just coaching neurotic lifters in general.
Mhm.
Like, what do you think your approach is? What's different about your approach when you have someone who's like super neurotic versus someone who is more like laid back and not disengaged, but not as emotionally driven with their training?
Approach in terms of what?
It could be programming or just like how you communicate with them, because I know there's differences in both.
Yeah. Um, Programming wise, I've seen a lot of. So I've actually done this, and this was actually something I got recommended by Alex Tran a while ago, like months ago. But I've done this rarely. I've only done it a couple times, but like actually giving someone a load and then having them rate the RPE for that load instead of the opposite is pretty clever. You know what I mean? Like instead of prescribing RPE and then having them take XYZ to the RPE, just giving them a percentage and then having them rate the RPE. Like I literally will put a red question mark in the actual RPE column and say, rate this RPE. So they don't overthink about what to take on the bar. They just go in the gym. They know exactly what workout they want. I know this is kind of like a specific example with programming, but that's what I've done in the past. And it kind of calms people down. And then on the topic of just prescribing load, literally just a lot of percentage based work, like just already having the load planned out throughout the block, giving someone a very slim estimated range, so they don't have like a 15 kilo range to pick from. That's too much. Maybe like a 5 kilo range or something. Giving them a lot of percentage based back downs, stuff like that, so they don't really have to think as much in the gym is something I've done a lot.
Yeah, to go on back to the RPE thing you were talking about. I've had someone who she would always watch back the video a million times before she would rate her RPE.
Yeah.
And then when you're that far removed from the set, I feel like it's very hard to actually give an accurate gauge. And you've watched the set so many times, you're just like desensitized, don't even know what you're watching.
Yeah.
So I would have her. I'd say you have to rate the RPE within 5 seconds of doing the set, and you're not allowed to watch the video before you rate the RPE. So I would have her do the set, and then as soon as she unracks or re-racks, you got to say the RPE and then go write it down, and then you can watch the set. But
Yeah.
I feel like watching the set over and over and over and over again is not a good way to try to rate your RPE, especially for people who are super emotional.
Communication wise too, a big one's just like not feeding into the neuroticism. Because of like if you have people who like, especially when you have a daily communication system, who will do something in the gym, something goes wrong, whatever happens, will just absolutely start to like spam you, just like blocks of text, and it's just like nothing productive is coming out of that. Like 90% of the times, it's all just like useless and not feeding into it, or like forcing people to be a little bit more reflective. Like the post session update is a great way to like do that, because it forces people to like wait till the end, reflect, and a lot of the times when they're calmed down, when they're not just like coming off of a big set that went poorly, it's like you're probably not going to communicate in that way because it's just garbage.
Mhm.
A little off topic, but whenever you guys program percent work, do you not have people rate the RPE? Because I've always done that. Anytime I prescribed load, I'd still have people rate RPE for it.
I still have people rate the RPE.
Yeah.
I do, but I also don't actually, because I think it's for a similar reason that we just talked about. I think it's useful to just forget about the RPE sometimes. Like so a strategy I use a lot is just like the M round percentage backdowns. For those, I just cross off the actual RPE column. So for example, someone will have like a top set and then maybe like a top back down set, and then I don't know, 2 to 3 sets of back down sets at the same rep range. I'll just cross the RPE column out for those because I'll see the video. I can probably guess how hard it was and see how hard it was based on bar speed myself. But B, it's also like they don't really have to think that hard. They can just rate the RPE for the top set and move on with their day.
Yeah, when it's something like a percent drop, or I don't know if it's a really low percentage that's not going to be any kind of real rateable RPE. I guess it's not the most important thing or the most important data to have, but I'm always going to leave the column open to fill in just because I'd rather have the data than not. If I'm going and looking back at old programming, it's not going to hurt if the RPE is there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm the same. Like I even if it's like, oh, you hit a bench set and it's minus for like 15%, it's gonna be easy, but like I still want to see, from their end subjectively what, like, how hard did you feel like this was? Because then maybe like that gives you insight, like, okay, this percent drop for whatever reason is like too big. And it's like, how else would you know that unless, for whatever reason, you're able to just tell that it's way too easy from the video. And just consistently, if you see that RPE just getting rated way too low, then it's a pretty like telltale sign that, it might be too low of a percent drop or too big of a percent drop.
Going back to the communication thing that we just kind of strayed from, what you were saying, Andy, with how when you get spammed with like a million different texts within one session,
Yeah.
I think you guys are the same way, but I've gotten a lot better as time's gone on with if you send me a bunch of different texts with like 30 seconds in between, I'm not going to respond to any of them until I get like 30 minutes of no texts. I'm not gonna. I feel like there's nothing that's useful that can come from engaging with that kind of communication. And I think Steve does that, right, where he'll just leave you on red if you're giving him useful or useless information.
Yeah, it's very like I do things very similarly to him. I think you guys do as well. But yeah, like, well, I don't think I've yet to do this. Like, I've never been the person to tell him something stupid in the middle of a session, or you know what I mean. I haven't done that myself, but like on my onboarding call with him and just in general conversation and like his Instagram stories and stuff, yeah, he'll just like leave you on red if you're texting him in the middle of the session and useless stuff. But like he does it very, I guess, I guess it is strict, but it's very organized and well laid out in the sense of it's very post session. Give him an update, send videos, he'll give feedback. And if you don't give him one half of the other, like if you just send videos or you just send an update, he'll just wait until the other half comes to give feedback. Yeah.
It's a weird like balance to strike sometimes, because I don't know if you guys have people like this, but like I have a lot of people who will like message me while they're warming up for something or like during a session, and they'll be like, yo, I'm feeling dangerous, like this weight's moving light, and I'm like I don't want to respond to it, because again, it's just enforcing like, oh yeah, I'll respond if you text me during the session, but at the same time it's kind of like, I don't know, what am I supposed to say that? Like, yeah, let's go, I haven't seen the set yet, but yeah, like, I don't know. That's always like, me personally, I don't like when people do that, but I like seeing that you're getting
my
excited.
least favorite text to get from a client is, I don't know my least favorite, but one I hate a lot is, here's my last warm up, what should I take for my top set?
Oh yeah, that's a good one too. Yeah. I the way I go about it is like everything should be planned for you. The session, like your whole session should be planned out. You've got an RPE to follow, maybe a range that I'm giving you. All of your accessories are there. You should be autonomous and responsible enough to auto-regulate as needed. I don't need to be here holding your hand during your session. That's your job. Hold your own hand. If you need help, ask ahead of time. But yeah, like just you should be autonomous and responsible enough to auto-regulate during your own session. And if, like Andy's example, if things are feeling dangerous on a certain day, tell me after, and I'll say great, and then I'll tell you why I thought things felt dangerous. But I don't really like if you just took a top set and you're like, oh, I smoked that shit. It's like, nice, great, I'm glad to hear that. But I don't really have a lot of people that do that, because I like tell people message me after. But yeah, I'd just say like, great job or something. But
I'm fine giving people warm-ups or like ranges or whatever, but not during your session and day of. Like
exactly.
If you want help with what weights to take for warm-ups, or what I give ranges for the most part, but like what weights to take, ask the day before, or ask the week of. I can lay out the whole week, but don't text me after you've taken your last warm-up and say, okay, I'm doing my next set in 4 minutes, what should I take?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's because I know Devin, you don't do ranges for the most part, right? Like you don't give people ranges ahead of time unless it's like a specific situation.
I do probably like 2/3 of the time, but not for everyone, no.
Yeah, because I do ranges for almost everyone. And I can count on like one hand the amount of times people have asked me like, "Oh, I just hit my last warm up. Like, what should I take for my top set?"
Yeah.
Um, I think it's like a combination of giving people ranges, which I don't necessarily think is something that I want to do forever. I think for right now, the demographics that I have on my roster, it's useful for them. Um, but I think that on top of the like just having a document and just educating people on how to warm up properly is something that's been pretty useful.
Yep. I have the same thing.
Yeah.
I don't have a warm up document. I have a communication guidelines document, but I haven't made a warm up document. Maybe I should do that.
Yeah. It took me like 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just like, oh, your first couple warm ups, you take this amount of reps and this amount of range, and then as you build up, like it tapers down, for example, and then you kind of give guidelines on what weight jumps you would want into your top set and things like that. And I feel like it's pretty useful.
Sometimes you don't realize how big the learning curve is with people who are really new to lifting in general. Like when you have someone on your roster who's like actually new to just lifting weights in general, they'll be like, oh yeah, my last warm up was 10 pounds over my top set, and then I took the top set with 135 or whatever. It's like, oh wow, yeah, that's not how you warm up. So maybe you should go
I
work out how to do that.
had I had someone who is not new to lifting. He benches like close to 300 pounds as an 82, and he was warming up for he hit an all-time PR of 286, and I watched him load his warm-ups. He got to the gym, he hopped on the bench, hit the bar, threw on a red, hit it for a couple reps, threw on two reds, hit it for a rep, and then went to 286, which was all-time PR, and he hit it.
Yeah.
But I said, don't warm up like that. And he has actually been warming up since, and his bench is going even better. So,
oh yeah.
but he was doing that for like months. He was doing that for I think 6 months.
All right. What's next? I'll probably have to hop off soon, to be honest.
Okay.
You want to do the communication one? I feel like the tapering approaches is going to be long as.
It's probably a longer conversation.
Yeah, we'll do that in another episode. What was the communication?
Why is daily communication superior?
I can start. But I have made like a little YouTube video on communication too, and I kind of talk about this, but the biggest one is, well, maybe not the biggest one, but a big thing for me is it is easier for me to track trends among each session if someone is giving me feedback for every session. Not only just from my perspective to analyze things, like it's just easier for me to go day by day than weekly in my mind. But also from the client's mind, like you don't have to, if someone's recalling a week of training, they're on like a Saturday or something, they're gonna have to recall all the way back to Monday or Sunday, or they're gonna have to take notes as they go and then give some kind of feedback. But if you're taking notes as you go, you should probably find a coach who offers daily communication to communicate that with every day. You know what I mean? It's either going to be too hard to track after a full week of training because you have to recall how you felt on a day 5 days ago. You know what I mean? Or you're going to have to keep track of things and then like put that in some kind of weekly recap. Again, there's more options beyond weekly, but I'm just using that in comparison.
Yeah.
I got to work with a coach that was weekly communication, and it was the exact problem that you would run into, especially if you're someone who is like taking mindful notes of what's going on in your training session and looking to have changes be made as a result of what's actually happening. It's just like you're bound to miss things, and you're bound to kind of miss things in the feedback from the coach's end as well when it's just like so much at once. Like a weekly check-in talking about like 5 or 6 training days worth of information and like looking at that many videos, it's like you're bound to miss small details that you would just easily pick up in a post-session update on a daily basis.
Agreed. My only coaches have been Devin for a year, and then now Kelly Mann, and they both offer daily communication. So I don't have really any experience with the weekly communication because that's not the service that I offer either. But yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty clear that why daily communication would be better than weekly.
I think there's like some people who can benefit from not having daily, but it's like if you are a seasoned powerlifter who genuinely wants to get as strong as possible, you should probably invest in a coach who's going to do everything they can to help you get strong. And I'd say 9 times out of 10, that type of coach is going to offer daily communication.
Yep. Someone at the gym that we go to who just got a new coach, I'm assuming that you all both know what I'm talking about, offers weekly communication, and he's saying that that's what he prefers. And maybe there are people out there who prefer the weekly communication just because they want to be more autonomous. But yeah, I can't imagine from the coach's perspective feeling like you have everything that you need and having full control over someone's program when you're just sitting down at your desk one day a week and looking at their training and okay, here are the changes, and then just going a week without speaking.
Yeah.
I was about to say, like, I mean this in the least like mean way possible, but it's like I feel like in some way it shows, like, obviously if it's a situation of, oh, I have a tiered service where like I provide that daily communication style, and then there's like lower tiers to kind of reach more of an audience, but at the same time, like, I feel like to some degree it probably shows a lack of like investment in the actual client's like training, because it's like the daily communication, it's just so many more opportunities to like make these small changes, to watch videos, to actually talk to the person, and it's just a way more invested experience on the side of the coach as well as the athlete, whereas that weekly, like you said, it's just like you're sitting down once a week to give a weekly check-in, like touch the program, things like that, but that's the first time that week that you're looking at things, and it's the last time that week that you're looking at things, compared to someone else who's looking at that program, talking to that person 5-6 times a week. There has to be like it's like I said, sometimes it's just like a tiered service thing. But if it's a situation where you are a full-time coach and you're choosing to provide like a weekly communication, like as your service, I feel like it, to some degree, it's just kind of like, what's the benefit there?
Yeah, I can't see myself ever offering a tiered. Right now, we offer one service. Coaching service is the same. There's one available. I don't see myself ever going to a tiered service where it's like, okay, we have daily communication, and then this one's weekly communication. Just because the weekly communication style just seems so like boring, and I don't think I could be invested in someone's training if I'm not talking to them multiple times a week and having to give feedback after every session. Like I'm getting like an essay at the end of the week and then watching all their videos. It's just like I feel like I can't be involved.
Yeah.
And I couldn't give as good of a service.
I agree. I'm on the same page. I think it's similar to what I said about just like kind of, if you're a powerlifter who really wants to get as strong as you can, you should probably invest in a coach who's going to help you do that. And yeah, like that, you're probably going to work best with a daily communicator. If the coach wants to is like coaching for the athlete and not just coaching to make a quick buck, they're probably going to be doing everything they can to get you strong, and that's going to be within daily communication. Yep. In my opinion.
Agreed. All right, it's I'll probably have to hop off in like now 7:30.
Okay.
Do you want to cut the recording?
Yeah, we want to cap it there.
Yeah.
How do I stop it?
I say maybe start.
It should be the same button, probably.